Hello, welcome to Widnes Rugby Chat. It's been a long time, more than 2 years since I did a last episode of these, but I've been persuaded to bring them back. If you've not heard me before, my name's James Gordon. I am BBC Radio Merseyside commentator, but perhaps in a previous life, or perhaps the same one, the Widnes Rugby Chat podcast ran from about 2019 through to 2022. Keeping you up to date with all things Widnes Vikings and hopefully Widnes on a rugby league front more and more. The plan is to try and bring it back weekly, give fans an outlet really. The lack of independent media coverage of Widnes is certainly a frustrating one, so hopefully I can help to bridge that gap. And I'm not on my own. I'm joined by Mike Parsons, and Mike will... has to take a bit of credit for geeing me up to redo this. He approached me, what was it, back end of last year, I think, and we knocked a few ideas around. So, Mike, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And just tell us a little bit about yourself and obviously your Widnes fandom.
Personally, for me, James, just a really passionate supporter who I'm sure, like everybody listening to this, just likes a bit of content back. And essentially, reaching out to you and going through the discussions that we did, I think it was a no-brainer, really. Been going the games for as long as I can remember. Yeah,
well, so, I mean, my situation is a little bit different to where it was. I was full-time editor of Love Rugby League, and I finished there, well, near enough a year ago now, so got a little bit more time to put into projects like this. And as I mentioned in that first little chatter now, clearly Widnes, it's sometimes frustrating, isn't it? Because it needs more coverage to help the club get more fans through the gate. And so what I'm going to try and do is relaunch the website a little bit. The idea is that I'll try and produce articles on a weekly basis. We'll do the podcast on a weekly basis. And the idea is that ultimately I'm a fan first, whatever my professional career takes. I am a fan first and foremost, and that will always be the motivation behind doing this. But of course, I'm aware that I can provide insight and some behind the scenes access that other people can't get. And also, you want to hold people to account at certain points as well. And, I don't want to be negative on that front, but I think it's good to ask questions and to understand what's going on. And I know from when we did the podcast last time that it was nice having people coming up to me on the terraces and stuff, thanking me for letting them know what's going on. I mean, as it happens, I think Widnes' media output this season's improved significantly as the season goes on. I spoke to Dan a couple of times, and there's a lot more behind the scenes stuff going on, interviews with players and features, and I know that there's a lot of work going in to the community side as well. So hopefully through this outlet of the podcast, we can provide a bit more of an independent look at what's going on and see where we get to.
Absolutely.
So let's start then. The last game of Widnes, of course, had a weekend off because of the Challenge Cup last weekend. So we'll just look back to the York match, which was an interesting one for Widnes. They were second best for large parts of the game. I thought York were quite on top, but then stuck to it and won 22-18 in the end. We've got a bit of audio with Allan Coleman that we'll place in the podcast very shortly. But Mike, just interested to know what your thoughts were on that game.
Really? I mean, it didn't disappoint, really, did it? I mean, it really was a game of two halves. I think the first half, quite simply, our handling errors coming out of yardage. I was placed from behind the post, so it was difficult to see if we had any trouble further up the pitch, making meters. But from where I personally was situated in the stadium, it was making errors deep time after time. I think Kieran Dixon made a couple of handling errors, dropping the ball cold. Mike Butt as well, I think, contributed, and a few more as well. I don't think York was fantastic, certainly in that first half. I think they was a team massively suffering with confidence, but really we fed them into the game, I felt. And as the half went on, they become more confident. And really, Yeah, 14-0. It got to 8-0 for me, and I was looking at the scoreboard with the minutes ticking down, and I thought, I'll take this. Get into the sheds.
Yeah, certainly on commentary, we thought if Widnes could go in at 8-0 down at half time, they'd be very happy. I think the situation, the way I saw the game, Widnes just struggled to get out of their own half. It was that straightforward. York were on top of them in the middle, and clearly Widnes was starting every set from 10-20 out and not really getting very far. What perhaps we didn't really appreciate in the first half was there was a bit of a breeze that Widnes were playing into, and maybe that played more of a factor. I mean, I don't think Tom Gilmore's not necessarily got the biggest kicking game anyway. He's not like a Danny Craven, sort of in-hand kicker, but I do think that was helping York, certainly in the first half. And yeah, I tweeted the same at half time. I just couldn't see how Widnes could turn it around, to be honest, the way that it was going. They got the early try back. Even when they got the early try back, I thought it was a well taken try by Matty Fossard. Actually, it was a good play by Gilmore to dip in at dummy half and see what was ahead of him. Even when they got that try, I don't actually think Widnes they weren't necessarily much better off even then in terms of the pattern of the game hadn't changed massively when Widnes scored that try. They just capitalised on a York error on that occasion. So, and then I think the one that the time where I thought maybe the chance had gone was when they let the dropout bounce out, when Max Roberts let the dropout bounce out, when it was a good tackle by was it Lloyd Roby, wasn't it? Had tackled Joe Brown behind the line, and it was one of them where Max Roberts was stood near the touchline and he thought it was going out on the fall and he decided to let it bounce. And again, I said on commentary, it's like, just catch it in that situation, because even if it does go out on the full, you're only getting a penalty 10 yards out.
Yeah.
They're not going to kick the 2 because they're losing by 8 anyway. If he catches that ball, he runs it, he probably gets tackled 15 metres out anyway.
Absolutely.
And I did think it had gone at that point.
Yeah. I think where it changed for me, where we seemed to maybe take a step up, was I think it was really important the time Mataragano went off. I think that at that moment in time, we started to take the ascendancy a little bit more, and I think the substitution by Allan Coleman, I think it's something that we've not really seen before. It was a brave coaching decision. Lyons coming off, Dixon up, the man management at half time, by the way, because having a seasoned professional like Dixon coming off, and a lot of players, their heads had been down, confidence shot. But it sounded to me, listening to him after the game, there was a clear plan. He was always coming back on, and he just needed to calm down for 10 minutes. And then the introduction of, say, Lloyd Roby and getting Jack in the halves. I think Jack when he come into the halves, he was really taking it into the line, and we had a left and right then. And with Joe Lyons, I'll be honest, he didn't really do much wrong in the game, but the tactical awareness to do that, and it really propelled us forward. It really did. Yeah,
York didn't have any halfbacks, basically. Well, they had a young lad who was making his debut, and obviously when Hengano went off, and they had the lad playing at fullback who Pemberton, who's a hooker really by trade. But I wondered when he made the substitution whether Dixon might go in at fullback. Was because obviously it had such a nightmare of a first half. I thought initially maybe he'd put Dixon in at fullback to maybe give him a bit of running, but certainly I think Jack Owens offers a lot at halfback. He's obviously a good fullback, but I remember that the game actually got injured. The Warrington game, Owens was playing halfback in that, and he was absolutely running that game.
He was,
and I think the thing with it, Jack's actually a good rugby player, so he goes into that position. But it's nice to have that option to be able to do that, and it's a shame for Lloyd Roby really, because I think he's got something. Certainly running at the line, you can, when he's in the team and he goes on either edge, you feel like he's going to make something happen with his running. I just don't know whether there's other parts of his game that perhaps, for whatever reason, mean that he doesn't get selected. But I think Joe Lyons, for instance, is a lot better defensively.
Yeah.
Although to be fair to Joe Lyons, I think, and to be fair to Tom Gilmore, Allan Coleman did mention this sort of pre-season. He's getting him to run at the line a lot more, and I think it's opening him up. it's helping to open teams up and create a bit more space.
Yeah.
But it was an important win, that match. Obviously, with the break coming, it was important to get the points on the board and maintain that up to second in the end, because Sheffield got beat. So how do you reflect on the first part of the season? So Widnes ahead of this Wakefield game, which is a top of the table clash, although of course Wakefield are largely head and shoulders above everybody else. They're full time. They've got a lot of money. They've got a rich owner. They're pretty much nailed on to be back in Super League next season, regardless of what happens on the pitch. Widnes have won 7, drawn 1 out of 10, which is a decent return. How do you see it after 10 games?
You can't complain. I don't think anybody's seen this coming, really, not to this extent. I think as a fan base, I think we thought, really, can it get any worse? And then when you feel that and think that the pattern has been over the last few years, it tends to. But full credit to Allan, because I think, for me, the pre-season was very hit and miss. I think we got to test in Workington, which really, it was a formality, really. I thought in the Whitehaven fixture, I thought we was very ordinary. I believe a lot of their players had just come back from Australia as well within the week. So we wasn't necessarily playing a side that had been together too much, and we just scraped a draw in that one. And then the Warrington game was like a basketball game, really. I think we shown some moments of brilliance, like you said early on, with Jack taking it deep into the line. Certainly on that left-hand side, we was carving them open. And then seemed to lose our way in the middle, through the middle period of the game. And then, like we've seen a number of times this year, we've kicked back strongly towards the end of games. We're finishing strongly. Then obviously, the 1895 Cup games, they certainly wasn't ideal. I'm sure the club and the fans would have loved, if not the final, a semi-final at least. It wasn't to be. The situation at Swinton, everybody knows about. And I think, full respect, to Allan Coleman, how he dealt with that situation. I remember him speaking after the game. It was like the calmest person about, really. The reality is we didn't play well, but it wasn't awful. It wasn't terrible. We had lots of field position, and we just couldn't make anything happen. We had a couple of loans and dual registration players playing, which, ultimately, they're not here anymore. And then since then, we've really kicked on. The game at Barrow, it was what you call probably an ideal start. If you could pick a first fixture without being disrespectful to any opponents. I thought we did a professional job. And the confidence has really grew from there, and it just stands out, just little moments like that with Allan, where what he must be doing in the dressing room, to do what we did against Swinton, and then to produce that Doncaster performance, which it was a bit of a freak result, but we went into that game with so much adversity, so many players missing. I think we had Gilmore on the bench, who was really ill, who played 10 minutes. And we was unplayable in parts of that game, and he's really bred the confidence, and they're really believing in themselves, and they're not giving up, which is something I've certainly not seen for a Widnes side in quite a while, to be honest. Probably the Dennis Betts days, to be fair.
Yeah, well, we'll nip in and hear a little bit from. I caught up with him in the immediate aftermath of the York game. Allan, well, you stay in games week in, week out, and eventually you get a reward for it, and you got that today.
Yeah, first half, we're not going to paper over any cracks. It was poor from us. Probably worst we've been under me. We said a few things at half time, and we agreed. The group agreed, so it's not like a coach ranted and raving. they just knew it weren't good enough for this club and for them travelling fans. And you know, second half, all you want from a team is when you ask them to do something, they try. At least they try. And I thought our second half was just perfect how we did about it. We didn't panic for 10 minutes for trying to score. We just crept into the game, started winning possession. So there was not getting out of yardage, and we was constantly in good ball. So, you know, that was the thought process on that.
We were saying at 8-0, you would probably been quite happy to have gone in at 8-0. You went 14-0, bit of a tougher mountain to climb. Did you think when they let the dropout bounce out at 14-6 that was your time and you'd let it go there?
I've learnt with this group, you know, you've seen it, Whitehaven and other teams, and there could be 5 minutes left and we're not out of the game. It could be 12 points behind, we're not out, and teams, people are starting to speak about that now, and you know, it's just that passion, that desire, and I just think we're showing bucketfuls of it. You know, first half we didn't show it, but you can't just question a group. You know, every team has an off day, so as long as they agree they've had an off day, you've got a chance then to work on it.
Can we ask you how you managed Cavan Dixon? Of course, you made a few individual errors in the first half. You took him off at half time, but then he almost went to the hero of the piece, scored the 2 tries, and it was quite fitting at the end. It was him who launched the ball over the stand to end the match. How did you manage that situation? You
know, we spoke at half time, and I'm head coach of Widnes, and I want Widnes to succeed. So I have to make some tough calls at times, and it's not nice when, you know, he probably had a poor 40 minutes, and he knows that. He come and apologised, and we've had Lloyd Roby on bench today. I thought brought some magic to us when he come on. He just looked energised, and so, you know, I said to Kieran, you will go back on, don't you worry, but I need to make a change. I need to, if we make errors and we're not at our best, we have to change things. And he was agreeing. I said, but when you go on, win us this game, and fortunate for him, he was the hero at the end.
And you made a bit of a tactical switch at the end, and you put Jack Owens in at half-back, and it not for the first time, it felt like him and Todd Gilmore again got hold of the game in that last 10-15 minutes, and they almost said, we feel like we can win this game, and they got you over the line.
Yeah, you know, young Joey, he did nothing wrong as such, he just a bit quiet as such, and Gilly was quiet. But in them situations, you can't really take your most experienced player off the field. So something's got to give, and Jack's very energy driven, and he's always wanting the ball, and I just thought, we'll get him on that half spot. Let's cause some problems that side, because we were just constantly attacking our left, so we needed to split it up. There was just numbering up on us, and I just thought he brought that to us.
We talked a bit about Brett Bailey as well, making his debut, young lad. You really had control and big fight in that middle, but when he came on the second half, it seemed to disrupt them quite a bit.
I was just buzzing for that lad, to be honest. You know, we spoke about him. So we want to get Widnes players playing for Widnes again, and you know, you can't have everyone from Widnes. I understand that, but if you're going to bring somebody on loan and we was short of a middle, how fitting is it to get a kid from Widnes in that jersey? And I just thought you could see from the first carry he did how much it meant to him to play for Widnes. Now he's Saints are fortunate to have him, but I was pleased for him. I thought he gave us punch. He was taking 2 and 3 defenders constantly, and he was a real physical battle for them, and they couldn't handle him at times.
How much of that came from when he played against Widnes a few weeks ago against Whitehaven? Was that where you thought we need to get him playing for us?
I just think, you know, now and again you need to come against teams like they've got Kumatai and they've got John Thompson and, you know, Santi and the big boys, you know, and we're quite small at times apart from our starting 2. So it was vital that we matched them at times in that, and he was a perfect fit for us, and he's with us again now for another week or 2, which is exciting for him and exciting for us, and hopefully, you know, if Saints are happy, you know, it could become a long-term thing for us, and I think he'd love and he'd thrive off it.
With the results elsewhere, you've gone up to second in the league. How important was it to get the win before the week off?
Yeah, you know, I keep saying about this competition how difficult it is. Swinton's beat Featherstone, you know, Batley's beat Sheffield, and we don't underestimate anybody. You know, we respect all opponents. We played second from bottom today. They're a good team, you know, but somebody's got to be in that position. Unfortunately for them, it's them. And I just think even if you're playing Dewsbury or teams like that who's unfortunate at the bottom, it's a tough game in this championship. There's no easy games, and we've just said as a group then we have to be that team who don't lose games banana skins, if that makes sense. You know, when people expect you to win, you've got to win, and the big thing for us all week was don't go back to back on defeats. And I think if you can do that in the championship, you'll not be far off, because most teams will lose 2 or 3 on the bounce, but we won't be that team who don't.
After the way you came back there in the second half, you might be thinking, well, let's look forward to another game next week. There is no other game next week. Does that give you a chance to get a few bodies back?
Hope so. You know, it's, you know, Danny Langtree, Nick Gregson's running now. We've had some good news on them. They're probably 2 weeks. Callum Field's probably a bit longer. Ryan Ince is back, ready to go. And you need them players. We're playing the first and third, not first and second. We're playing the first and third, and you know, nobody's beat Wakefield, and we're no fools. But you know, can we be that team who does it? I trust and I believe, and we've just got to focus on that. You know, we've given the lads a week off now with Challenge Cup, and go and spend some time with family and friends, and and enjoy it, and come back and let's have a real buzz about the place. It's like a Wembley week for me, that, because we're playing the best and we're playing a team who's not us.
Just finally, about the fans that were largely behind the goal, you were attacking in the second half. They were almost sucking Widnes in towards them in that second half, weren't they?
They're brilliant, and I think they're slowly believing that, do you know what, we're not the best team in the comp, but we're a team they're enjoying supporting again. So they can see that if they go behind, this team won't give up. I'd have loved them being in the dressing room where we spoke to players, and a lot of the focus was on them. We've got to be proud to wear the Widnes jersey for one, and you've got to be proud to play for them. And you can see at end how much it means to them. We're going to travel home now, spend a lot of money today, and 2 hours drive, and be happy and smiling. And that's what we've got to achieve at this club. And we've just got to get more numbers in if we can, so we can grow as a club, but also we can sign bigger quality players also once the club grows again.
Right, so that was Allan Coleman after the York match. And Mike, just before that, we heard from Allan there. We were talking a little bit about, you mentioned dual registration and players, and Widnes, of course, announced the partnership with Warrington in the off-season. They also announced some season-long loans. I think it was Lucas Green and Tom Whitehead. I heard at the time that Warrington weren't too happy that they'd been announced as season-long loans, and as it transpired, it's not. There's not been any of that. Lucas Green, I think, ended up playing for 4 clubs already this season. Harvey Wilson was another one who Widnes had signed from Wigan on season-long loan. He's since ended up at Salford, although he had a bit of a spell. He actually played against Widnes for Bradford. So I just want to flirt this. My impression is that maybe in January, maybe a couple of them were a little bit of a panic buy situation. There was a bit of criticism about the size of the squad. But in spite of that, whatever you think about that situation, clearly as time's gone on, Allan Coleman's decided he's best to devote his time into his own players. And I think it's probably just been, it's perhaps testament to the work that he's done and the fact that they've been able to keep the players they've had some, but he's had enough players to be able to put out a decent team week in, week out without having to use dual registration. And also, I think, from my understanding, is Warrington are offering up players, but ultimately probably not in the positions that Widnes needed. If Warrington had some outside, but had a centre that they wanted to farm out on dual reg, I'm sure they probably would have played every week for Widnes this season, because Widnes have been a bit short in the centres. But from a fan's point of view, clearly it's better, isn't it, when you've got your own players playing, as opposed to random players dropping in, week out.
100%. I think the introduction of Dan Murray, suggests, it was serving a purpose at the time. I think
Murray was an excellent signing, by the way. I think he's been one of the best signings Widnes have made for a good few seasons. And the fact that Widnes picked him out quite late. I mean, I'm astonished that Halifax got rid of him. They were a bit unlucky because they had a couple of bad injuries the week after.
Yeah,
but that was an absolute steal for Widnes.
It absolutely was, and he's not just a forward. He is, but he's playing 30-35 minutes. I think at Odsall, when he just arrived, he'd done like a 30-35 minute stint, went off, and then he come back on. And what I've noticed as well, not just with Dan, but Kirky as well, as he's getting better as every game goes by, and Sam Brooks, and they've all got a pass in them, and I think it makes the difference. I think in time gone by, certainly the last few years, it's been one-up rugby down the middle, whereas now these big blokes, they're running wider, they're passing it and teeing each other up to go through gaps. I think Sam Wild scored the cracking try where Murray and Kirk linked together, and Wild scored on the left earlier on in the season, and it just makes us not predictable. It essentially means, I think we can all agree under the John Keir days, we all knew what was coming, and you can imagine yourself, being in the opposition's camp. It must be so easy to prepare against you. Whereas if, you're moving the ball left to right, and even the prop forwards are passing it, and you know, we all know Walker's got silky skills as well, and we know we've got Callum Field who's got it in him to play loose forward. You know, it offers a different threat. You know, it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think, like you say, having said that, I thought Brett Bailey was very good. He was the sort of player that you want to be bringing in on loan or on dual edge. I think he added something at the York game, and I suppose it's good to be in a situation where you can pick and choose rather than being reliant on it. I know Swinton have used it a bit with St Helens, or used it a lot with St Helens last season. Of course, beat Widnes with a lot of Widnes lads in the team, and there's always that side of it. Ultimately, if there's local players becoming available to play in the Championship, you want them to be playing for Widnes ideally. But at the same time, if you've already got players in the squad that are doing you a job, then why not rely on them? And I think ultimately, even though Widnes have had some injuries, they've never really been short. They've not really gone into any games where they were short on bodies. Certainly not in the pack. Maybe in the backs they've been a little bit short. But whereas in previous seasons it's probably been the other way around, hasn't it? Where they've had too many backs and not enough forwards, and then when someone's gone down, it's out. You know, Gregson has been injured, hasn't he, recently? He's missed a few. Obviously, Callum Field's injured. Sam Brooks, Danny Langtree. So then you look at that and you think we're still picking up a win at York, who are probably going to pick up and get towards playoffs, you would imagine, at some stage.
You think so? I think as a fan as well, that York game, I think we could look back in the season and that could be a really crucial point, because I think the couple of games prior, you know, we scraped past Doncaster. We was far from perfect, and I think, you know, play that game again, you might lose that game. I've said quite vocally, I think, you know, there was a handful of games, you know, Whitehaven and Doncaster, where we've picked up results.
Well, the Bradford game as well was only the week before that. That was only a point, yeah.
Yeah, where I think we played better at Featherstone when we lost on that day in patches. But going from the 16-14 at Doncaster and then the draw against Whitehaven, I think 28 apiece, you go to Toulouse, which was always an uphill task. It is for any team, you know, and to come away, again, a great effort, no one's disgraced, but a loss, and you've not played well, you know, for the last two games. At half-time, if you lose that York game, and then you've got Wakefield and Sheffield to come, all of a sudden you could hit that rock, really, where, you know, we've been in the past where we've started great, and it's like, is this the moment where it kind of fades? And I think the way we turned around that second half, I think as the season goes on, I think we'll really recognise how important that victory actually was.
Yeah, you mentioned there the Featherstone game. Widnes have effectively played what I would regard as two of the three hardest away games. They've played Toulouse and Featherstone away. Wakefield away is the only one out of the three that they've not played. So they've got, and then in them two away games, yeah, they lost them both, but they only lost by 8 points, which is considerably better than in previous years. I did tweet this the other week. Widnes' win percentage up to the end of April at the moment is 66% across the championship seasons. For some reason, after May the 1st, it goes down to 39%. Widnes have developed a habit in recent years of starting a season really well and tailing off. And what are we now? 5 seasons, is it? In 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, might have to take away the 20 because that was COVID. 5 seasons. They've got to be making the playoffs this year. A club size of Widnes in Championship need to be making playoffs. And you have to say, the job that's been done so far, you would be surprised if they don't. I think Widnes are probably also benefiting from it being a little bit more competitive this year. There's only really Wakefield who are head and shoulders above everybody else, whereas in previous years there's maybe been 2 or 3 teams at the top. You know, I think Widnes would fancy beating Toulouse at home.
Absolutely.
You know? And I think the because the rest of it's more competitive, that might actually help Widnes, and that's why getting points on the board is hopefully going to be better. Widnes have got a 6-point cushion at this stage on 7th. And you look at the teams from 7th down, Doncaster, Swinton, Batley, Whitehaven, Barrow, and then you've got York and Halifax. You them teams that win, lose, they don't necessarily string together a run of games. And I think Widnes haven't lost back to back all season yet. If they can almost maintain that sort of record throughout the season, they should be able to get in the playoffs, and that'd be a great achievement considering where they've been in recent years. And you have to say, for me, I think Allan Coleman deserves a lot of credit for that. But I also think the backroom that he's been able to. I don't know who it is at the club. Presumably the club have signed off him having more staff than we've seen in previous seasons. I know it was a bit of a sticking point for Tim Sheens, for example, but it feels like he's benefiting, certainly Eddie Kilgannon and when Steve Tyver comes in, and them having them extra, obviously he's got Tom Wood there as well, having them extra bodies seems to be helping get a tune out of the players.
Oh, absolutely. I know Tom, who he's brought over, he's worked close with, and he's brought, players as well, Rodri and Mike Butt, people he knows well. And I think as a coach, it must settle you. You've got people around you that you trust, like you say, being allowed to bring people in, you must feel settled. You've got people who you rely on, and you know what they're going to give you. So I think that's massive. I think it's been, I certainly Steve Tyra. I know a bit less about Eddie, but Steve coming in, we all know what Steve's going to offer. Full of encouragement, passion, loves the club.
I think I said if you could have a team of Steve Tyrers, you probably wouldn't be far off the way he played the game, and that's what you want, isn't it? I must admit, I must hold my hand up. I was completely wrong about Mike, but I just didn't understand. I didn't see the purpose of signing him, really. Widnes had Ryan Ince and Kieran Dixon, and of course Ollie Brooks in reserve. I just didn't see he added anything. But he's been excellent. I've been really impressed with him, and I'm more than happy to eat my own words on that, because I was just a bit like, when you look at when you look at other areas in the squad, maybe that Widnes need players, did they need to sign a winger?
Yeah.
And I actually think, to be fair, I actually think when Widnes played Swinton last season, and I think Widnes were winning 24-0, and Swinton was sort of threatening a comeback. I think Widnes won comfortably in the end, 40 or 20 odd or something like that. And I think they'd got it back to 24-16, and Mike Butt knocked on cold off a 20-metre tap. And I'm sure, I still believe if he hadn't done that, Swinton would have won that game, because he just swung the momentum of the whole game. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone do it. He just, he's rushed the ball back, gone to tap it on the 20-metre, and he sort of kneed it out of his hands or something like that. So I don't know whether I was... just unfortunate. I don't know whether my judgment was just based on that one incident, to be honest. But I think, he's being excellent. The way he catches the ball, he almost catches the ball with momentum.
Yeah.
So, where some players catch it and they're stood on their heels and then they've got to get going, he sort of catches it, and then he's already going as he's caught it. So being impressed with Mike, but I did it. Rodri Lloyd, I actually thought he got a bad injury, didn't he, when he was at Widnes last time? Yeah. Which was a bit unfortunate, because I actually think if he'd have been able to, I think he probably could have played Super League a lot more if he'd been able to. Certainly around them days at Widnes didn't have massive amounts of money.
He's been incredibly loyal to Swinton as well. I think he left in his testimonial, he had one coming up, and he left obviously to go with Allan. And I think again, for Allan, bringing somebody like that, it's clearly somebody, he trusts. But just going back to Mike a little bit, Mike, but I've got to be honest, James, I was absolutely all camp with that one. When we got the list of signings that we had, he wasn't one that particularly excited me. Probably, massively ignorant of myself, and if we're all being honest, probably a lot of the fan base. Probably one his age. I think he's about 28, 29, something like that.
Careful what you say about age.
Yeah, I know. And I think the year before, I think last year his try scoring, he'd not scored that many tries. So obviously, as a fan looking at that and coming in,
especially for a winger, I think sometimes a lot of teams play left, don't they, these days?
Yeah.
So if you're the right winger, you often don't you don't, like that. I always remember the Casper teams when Powell was there. I probably could have played on the left wing and scored 30 tries for them. I think Solomona had a ridiculous number one year. Greg Eden had it the season after. And I think some teams are just set up that way, aren't they?
Yeah. And like, I think it's been the two wingers, Ryan Ince and Mike Butt. I think it's been a massive important part of why we have been doing so well. And that might sound bizarre to say because the wingers, but they're not making many errors deep in their own half. They're taking every kicks. I mean, sometimes they're catching kicks in the air and they're landing on their head and they've still got the ball in their hands. Now, in time, like last year and the year before, we'd be giving like 12 points away just through dropping the ball, scrum down, the opponent score or get a repeat set, and then they go in. And I think as well, in fairness to them both, Ince but I think they spur each other on. I think they're really relishing the challenge.
Well, I think I was just going to say there. I think part of the positive or part of the contribution to that is the fact that there's a bit of competition for places there. Kieran Dixon's not been able to get back in the team since he's been injured because you couldn't pick Ince or you couldn't pick him over Ince or Butt. And same Ollie Brooks is there as well. So it feels like they've got a nice balance of competition for places in that area that, as you say, is probably spurring them on. And I feel like that's probably where there's a bit of a downfall in the centres at the moment.
Yeah.
You've ultimately got two centres, haven't you? And then I know Joe Edge is injured now, and Matt Fleming's being injured as well, and you're sort of lacking a little bit there. And it just goes to show that if you don't have that depth there, it all of a sudden becomes a bit exposed, whereas that's not being the case in the wing position. Looking ahead then to the Wakefield game, the club did put out this week that they're going to open the North Stand for Wakefield fans, so I think they're going to have blocks A, B and C, which is that the northwest corner to me and you? Think that? The northwest corner for the first three is going to be Wakefield fans, and then Widnes fans are going to have D, F, G and H, whatever that is, in the North Stand. So I'm sure that'll go down well. We are going to talk a bit more about the North Stand seating arrangement in next week's podcast. I've got some information to give to you regarding that. The reason for not opening the East or West is because of operational difficulties, whatever that means. I don't know whether that means someone's lost the key or something to the door or something. But I mean, to be fair, I have a bit of sympathy. It's a big stadium. You don't need to be opening three stands, in my opinion.
No, and I've been at Members Mondays when people have asked the question as to why, and the answer is, that there is simply no point, certainly in the Championship. I think me personally, for this one-off fixture, I think it would have made sense putting the away fans in, behind the post. But like I say, it's one of them. I think people get very attached to where they sit, don't they? And any part of change, it does rock the boat a little bit. And I get that. I understand that. But also, there are reasons, behind it.
I think part of the issue is that ultimately the North Stand should in theory be regarded as the home fan stand, and having Wakefield fan or away fans muscling in on that, I can see how people are happy. The problem is I think there should be probably 2 or 3 blocks in the South Stand that are just always for away fans. And I don't know this for a fact, so someone might be able to correct me. But my understanding is that because people have got season tickets all over the South Stand, that you have this problem where if you say, right, blocks A, B and C are going to be for away fans only, someone who's had a season ticket for 50 years or whatever who sits in block C, row 10 is going to be kicking up a stink. And I think it seems to me that that's the problem, because the North Stand should just be Widnes fans, in my opinion, but ultimately the away fans have got to go somewhere, and unless there's a bit in the South Stand, because I've seen plenty of people commenting saying, the South Stand wasn't great today because I was surrounded by away fans. Well, you avoid that by having certain blocks for away fans, and that's ultimately what opposition teams do when Widnes play.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think I saw a couple of bits on social media as well earlier on in the season where I think there was a couple of complaints of away fans sitting, in in people's seats. I think that's why Wakefield have obviously the north stand's been selected instead of the south. But I'm in total agreement with you. I think it's like the cop at Liverpool. The north stand is Widnes fans stand. You know what I mean?
I can sympathise with the south stand. I mean, I used to be a south stand season ticket holder back in the day, but even if someone's not sat in your seat, if you're sat in your normal seat and every row in front of you is away fans, that's not what you want from your season ticket seat. So mate, but I get that it's difficult, because if you're then saying, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are like. I have no idea how many south stand block A or block B or block C. There might not be that many. It might just be one that people have to suck up for the greater good.
Yeah.
I don't know. But in terms of the game itself, Widnes will clearly be underdogs in it. Wakefield have won every game, 10 out of 10. They've only conceded an average of 10 points per game, scoring 38 in the process. They won the 1895 Cup at Wembley last week. It looked for a bit like Sheffield were going to give them a game, but it turned into a blowout in the end. The full time, they're clearly spending a lot more money than Widnes. They've got clearly a much stronger squad. They clearly see it as they're just having a season off Super League. They'll be back there next season. What are the expectations from a Widnes point of view, do you think?
I'll be honest, James. I think we're playing them at a good time, as good as any, really. I think in Daryl Powell's post-match press conference, he mentioned how they're only going to be back in training on Wednesday. So obviously after winning a cup final, you've got to play them at some stage, and we're second in the table as well. So it marries with our form. I think from myself, make a good account of yourself. However, if we're sat at half time and we've made the mistakes that we did against York, it won't be 14-0 and there won't be a route back into the game. So my expectation is we're at it from the off. We've got to be in the faces. And if they are slightly off it because they've had a few drinks in the build, they've had a few drinks after Wembley, and, a couple of days off with the families and loved ones, we need to be in the faces, and any inch we can gain, we gain it and see where it takes you. We need to make a good accountability of ourselves.
Do you feel like the week after is more important, the Sheffield away game?
I'd say so. I think for me personally as well, like Sheffield not Sheffield as a club irritate me, but whenever we play Sheffield, we don't play well, and I'd love to play Sheffield and beat them, especially with the third at the moment, and we're second.
Yeah,
I think we owe them one. Because
I think what you don't want to do is you don't want to. I mean, you do, I guess. You go toe to toe with Wakefield and you get beat, but then you've taken it all out of you, and then you get beat at Sheffield, and all of a sudden, then all them teams behind you are catching you because you've lost 2 on the spin. And I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that Widnes throw the Wakefield game, and of course they would never do that. But you look at them 2 fixes and you actually probably say, well, if you could pick to win one of them 2, you would possibly say, well, I'd rather win the Sheffield one because we'll finish top of the league, whether Widnes beat him or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wakefield are going to take points off everybody. I mean, if somebody beats them once, I doubt they're going to beat them twice in the return fixture. So that levels itself out. Where, like you say, the Sheffield fixture, Sheffield are leading the chasing pack, behind us. So yeah, it's a massively important game. I think, to be honest, it's it's got the potential to be a cracker. It's probably one of them games. I mean, without going off topic a little bit onto Premier Sports and Viaplay and stuff, it's a shame it's not televised, because that will be an absolute cracking fixture to have on both sides. Mark Aston has his side, passing the ball. We seem to be going in the same territory now with Allan Coleman. It's a bit of an expansive way of playing.
Yeah, going back to the Wakefield game, I partly wonder whether it might. I could draw some parallels to the Challenge Cup final, where, for me, looking at Warrington and Wigan are much the better team. I think Wigan are the best team in Super League, and I think they will be for a good few years. But because Warrington Warrington had been doing well, there was all this expectation that got raised, that maybe Warrington could turn Wigan over. And I sort of wonder whether that's the case with Widnes and Wakefield. I think Wakefield are probably clearly the better team, just through resource more so than anything else. And that I think because Widnes are doing well, there's a little bit of, it's the top two, can Widnes, when actually the reality might be that Widnes are actually not miles off where Wakefield are, but are very much second best in that fixture.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of a fixture a couple of years ago, if you remember. I think we had a really good start, and then we played Lee at the Sports Village, and there was a bit of, false hope of going to that game to maybe win, and we comprehensively got beat. So, like say 9 times out of 10, Wakefield win this game, on Sunday. But I think, there's something about the place this year, something that Allan's instilled into the team. And, I think if an upset's going to happen, why not this weekend? Like I say, get under the skin. If you can go into half time, winning or a try behind, you never know where the game takes you. I mean, especially the way the rules are now. I mean, anybody can get a sin bin in at any given time now.
And I think what's also a lot of the good moments this season have tend to happen away from home. You look at the York win, the 2 Bradford wins, even the performance at Featherstone, which was better than most expected, was away. And so the home fixtures so far, there's not necessarily been that. There was the walkover win over Halifax, which was probably the high point of the season at home. Yeah. So it almost needs a big fixture at home like this to go all the way to get people enthused. But we'll talk about it. We're probably running over now for this one, but we'll talk about maybe next week or the week after. We'll just talk about how much we feel like the IMG thing is affecting attendances, because a few people have started asking me, what happens if Widnes win the grand final this year? And that's the frustrating part, is you're looking at something like that thinking, well, wouldn't it be sod's law if Widnes by some sort of miracle win the grand final this year, but don't go up to Super League? That'll be a discussion point. If you're listening, it'd be nice to hear your thoughts. So do leave a comment on wherever you're listening to the podcast. Leave a review or a comment, or drop me a tweet, and we'll get your opinion on it in a future episode. Before we sign off for this episode, the first one back, Widnes Rugby Chat podcast, I just want to mention that there is a sports quiz night being held by Widnes VIPs. Do they call themselves VIPs? Is that right?
Yep.
It's not VIPs, it's VIPs, right? Widnes VIPs are holding a sports quiz night. Of course, they raise money to support the club, effectively a replacement for the old Vikings quids in. And the sports quiz night is taking place on, I think it's a Wednesday 3rd of July, 7 p.m. And the guests confirmed so far, subject to professional and personal commitments: Steve McCormack, Gavin Dodd, Mark Smith, Jamie Bloom, Danny Walker, John Duffy, Lucas Onyango, and Ian Morrison. Some interesting names there, some cult heroes from the late 2000s era, I think, there. And if you want to get a ticket for that, I believe the club have shared the information today, but you can get it via the Widnes VIPs social media channels. I think you can buy them. I think I've seen the club said you can buy them from the shop in the market now. So if you go there, it's £5 entry. Fee includes a raffle. It's being held at the stadium in the Bridge Suite, 3rd of July. Should be a good one. I'm going. I'm hoping to win, to be honest, mate.
I'll be honest, it's something I've had my eye on, to be honest. I think I'm going to be there myself, so nice bit of friendly rivalry there, eh?
Yeah, I don't know whether do we end up with a player on our team. I might try and get into Steve McCormack, see if he fancies it. Fancy getting on my team. Thanks everyone for listening. Please do share the podcast and let people know that it's back. We'll be back hopefully every week now moving forward. We'll try and get some interviews and bits and bobs through the podcast like we've done previously. But Mike, thanks for joining me for this first one back. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure. Can't wait for next week.
Yeah, so thanks everyone. We'll see you at Wakefield on Sunday.